Hello, good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here, and today we are going to be discussing the German carriers, as you can tell by the title of the video. So, as I do with every preview ship event, I buy normally the largest bundle, maybe the second largest bundle of containers, depending upon how interested I am in the ships being offered. And I got lucky and managed to get all three ships in the first bundle. And before I get into the ships, the containers are actually more expensive than like the friggin' Santa containers this last year at least. So if you're looking to get your hand on the German CVs, just grind out the directives and stuff to get the containers. They're practically giving them away, it seems. I got on the first week of the event, and just by playing ships in no particular order, just recording footage for the channel, I got like shoot, sometimes 3 to 5 containers a day almost of these German airdrop containers. There's really no need to buy these containers. And these are tech line ships. They're going to be available just to research in a patch or so. So don't go out buy the containers. Just grind the directives. Get the stuff for free. Anyway, the German CVs themselves. So, the German CVs, the best way I've heard them described so far is that they are new mechanics on top of new mechanics, and that is very much true. And like I said way back when the German CVs were announced, I was perplexed that they were going down this route of German CVs and not Italian battleships that everybody's been waiting for quite some time now. And then we get the American Battleship Line split, and it's not the American Battleship Line split that we all wanted. But, God, I hope the next announcement is Italian battleships, because come on, Wargaming. Please, they're like one of the last line of battleships that actually existed that you can add into the game. Please, get on that. Anyway, the German CVs, they are interesting. I will give you that. They're very interesting. They're one of the few CV classes that I'm actually interested in playing all the way through to the tier 10 because it they're kind of weird, but they're also kind of interesting and fun. We'll get to that right now actually. So, the biggest change from the other CVs is the rocket planes having AP rockets instead of HE rockets. And I think that was a good choice because that finally gives DDs some room to breathe, especially up at higher tier once the line gets fully released. Because at higher tier right now, all the rockets planes are focused on mainly doing damage to DDs, or they may not be focused on doing damage to DDs, but they're very good at doing damage to DDs. And these AP rockets finally give DDs some room to breathe because honestly, if you land all your rockets on a destroyer, it may, if you get lucky, do 3,000 damage if all your rockets hit. And that's even having some of them pin. Because when these rockets overpin on a destroyer, they barely scratch the paint on it. You'll see that in the replay that I'm showing you guys right now. The destroyers have to be angled to you in order for them to get pinned. And the way the aiming ellipse is, I know the replay doesn't show it on the screen. It's an elongated horizontal ellipse like the Enterprise's ellipse. So it's not a circle like the Graf Zeppelin's ellipse where you can pretty much hit a destroyer from any angle and get roughly the same amount of damage with the Graf Zeppelin with his HE rockets. The AP rockets on the German CVs don't do that. So the easiest way to get all rockets on targets is approaching the side of a ship and letting the rockets fly, which is what they're designed to do, except against cruisers, not destroyers. If you get lucky and the destroyer's maneuvering and accidentally angles to you, you'll get a pin or two here and there, and even then, it's still, again, it's only like 3,000 damage, if that. So, you're mainly going to want to be going after cruisers. Now, yeah, if a destroyer's in the cap and you need to reset it, it can be useful for that. Or if the destroyer's at like 2,000 health and you need to finish it off, it can be useful for that. But you're not going to go around doing 8,000, 7,000 damage to destroyers like some of the American HE rockets could do, or even some of the other lines too, because, again, with the HE rockets, they're far better at doing damage to DDs than these AP rockets. Now, when you do catch a broadsiding cruiser, good God, these AP rockets are a little silly, and they're probably going to get walked back on the amount of damage they do. Granted, this is the Parzival that you're watching right now, and it is the tier 8, so it's one of the higher tier ones, and cruises at around tier 8, tier 9ish that you're going to be seeing. They have access. Some of them have access to heals at tier 8. Most of them have access to heals at tier 9. And you can do anywhere from, I think the highest I've gotten on a broadside cruiser was like 9k. I think it was 2 or 3 citadels and a bunch of pins on his broadside. It was an American cruiser too, so they sit up a little bit higher up out the water than the other cruisers. But yeah, that's the levels of damage you're gonna be doing with these rocket planes against cruisers, just anywhere from 6k to 8k. And the thing with cruisers too is that they generally have more AA than destroyers, unless of course it's like a pan-European DD, but they generally have more AA, so you are having to, take a bigger risk to go in there and get that damage, whereas you could just, bully a destroyer that doesn't have great AA. Not to say that there aren't cruisers at tier 8 that don't have great AA that you can bully, just that in general, those big juicy broadsides are going to be mostly American cruisers that have generally better AA. Again, AA is still all over the place. So I think those are good, shifting the focus away from just bullying DDs with the rockets. Now you have to go after cruisers with your rockets in order to get your damage in. And another thing too with the AP rockets is that you do have to know where to aim because they are AP rockets. It's not like HE where you can just kind of aim for the superstructure and get your good damage in. You have to know where to aim, and the ship can actually maneuver against the rockets. So that gives them a chance to mitigate the damage since they're AP rockets now, and they're not being dropped straight into their deck like bombs are. So I think overall that's a good new mechanic that they've introduced there. Alright, the next thing I want to talk about is the torpedoes. Now, the torpedoes, they basically did the old switcheroo with the characteristics of the Graf Zeppelin torpedoes to where it's basically the exact opposite. Whereas the Graf Zeppelin has slow but high damage torpedoes, these torpedoes are fast but they have like mediocre damage. If you get all 3 to land on a target, again depending upon its torpedo protection, you may get 8k, 9k here or there. And again, if a ship has less torpedo, and again I'm speaking kind of in general with the Weser and the Parzival, those are the ones I've played the most. I didn't play the Rhine all that much, but just that's where I'm coming from, just so you understand. This is about the line as a whole, not just the Parzival or just the Weser or just the Rhine. But yeah, you get mediocre damage with them, but they're easy to get on target. It's consistent damage. It's kind of like the Hakuru, how she uses her torpedoes as her consistent damage. Pretty much the same boat here. And the torpedo planes and the bomber planes are actually BF-110s, so they're not that fast. And I don't know how you're launching a BF-110 from a carrier, but gotta be one heck of a catapult on these carriers. But anyway, good consistent damage with the torpedoes. They're actually quite useful against cruisers and ironically destroyers because they are so fast. If you're skilled enough, you can make life kind of miserable for a DD by consistently going after him with torpedoes, bombers. I wouldn't recommend that because at the end of the day, they still do have enough maneuverability and speed. If they're a decent DD player to dodge your torps, I would go after cruisers and battleships, of course, with these torpedoes. But when you do connect a torpedo on a DD, it does feel pretty good. But they're very useful. I like them a lot better than the Graf Zeppelin torpedoes that you have to give a day and a half lead to. And it's actually funny. I think in this video, this replay, I actually do give, I think it's a Tirpitz, a little bit too much lead because I'm so used to the Graf Zeppelin torps, and I actually overshoot him with like a torp or two, so that's pretty funny, whereas in the Graf Zeppelin, a lot of times I was not giving enough lead. But the torpedoes are good. A lot of people are saying they're garbage. They're not necessarily garbage. That they're just there for your good, consistent damage. And of course, they also get the heal because they are torpedo planes. Alright, the AP bombers. These things are friggin' weird. They take a lot of time to get used to. The match you're watching here, this is like my 3rd match in Parzival. And you'll notice, I don't know if the part's in the video or not, but there was a Montana who he just didn't connect to the battle, and I flew the AP bombers. Like, his AA wasn't even on. I don't know if he joined and turned off his AA or disconnected or what. But normally, at least when you load in, your AA is still on because it's AI, but his AA wasn't. So that was a bit strange. But anyway, I fly over him, and since he's not moving, I get a perfect drop-off on him, and boy, They do nearly 20,000 damage to him with 2 citadels and a good pin. So these AP bombers, when they connect, it's like just a fist of steel, which is kind of weird since they are toning the AP bombers down for literally every other class in the game but the German CVs. I'm not sure if that just got by their global nerf because they were still in testing, and that nerf's going to come a little while later. But yeah, we'll see where that goes. For now, the AP bombers are difficult to use actually, but when they do connect, they hit hard, and they're difficult to use because the AP bombers fly extremely high, as you're seeing in the replay, and then when they dive, it's despite diving straight down, it feels like it takes forever to dive down. And they do have a vertical ellipse, and again, I know you can't see it on screen because the replay is funky. They have a vertical ellipse. It's kind of like, actually, it's almost exactly like the Enterprise's dive bombers, and they dive straight down, which I am very glad they brought that mechanic back. And again, each of the planes drop a huge bomb, and if they connect, you're going to be bringing the pain. Most of the time, the Parzival, I'm just getting 2 citadels to connect because I'm still trying to get used to the dive bombers, and it does about 17,000 damage just with 2 citadels. Again, depending upon if you get 2 citadels, then that third bomb, if it overpins or misses or pins, then you add a little bit more damage to the pile. But again, if you even get 2 citadels on whatever ship you're dropping on, it's going to hurt. Now, they are very difficult to get off on cruisers. These are by far easier to get off on battleships, as you see in the replay you're watching now. I mostly get them off on things like an Iowa, a Monarch, the Montana. I think I get one off on the Torpedoes. And if the ship is paying attention, they can easily juke these dive bombers. And they're not like the Hakuru dive bombers, where they are very fast. These are very slow and very easy to maneuver around. And also, the dive bombers also get a hill. So they get a hill in addition to the torpedo bombers. And again, these planes fly rather slow. I know the whole German thing was that the planes fly fast and they're maneuverable. And they are maneuverable, but the dive bombers and the torpedo bombers, in comparison to the Graf Zeppelin at least, feel a little bit slower. They are faster than something like the Enterprise and the American planes, but they feel kind of slow and clunky in comparison to the Graf Zeppelins. So, and then the carriers, the big question, are the secondaries awesome? They're fairly awesome. They're not quite Graf Zeppelin because they don't have the 150 millimeter hull guns that the Graf Zeppelin does, which allows it to kind of go after cruisers and even some battleships if it needs to. But they are plenty good DD repellent. I actually have my Graf Zeppelin Captain on the Parzival in the replay you're watching here. I do not have the secondary modules equipped on the Parzival, but if I did, the range would be pretty much the same as the Graf Zeppelin. But she only has the 105 millimeter secondaries up on deck. She has, I think, 12 of them, and they pin 27 millimeters of armor, which is plenty enough to, be DD repellent, but you can't, be like Graf Zeppelin and go after cruisers and actively hunt DDs with the carrier yourself. But if a destroyer sneaks up on you, like what you should be watching on screen right now, you are going to dissuade them from sticking around for too long. And again, with the rocket planes, you can throw, anywhere from 1,200 to 3,000 damage at them every now and then. And again, that's just if your rockets connect. If they don't connect, it barely does anything to them. But they do have decent secondaries where, again, like I said, it's basically DD repellent, not offensive secondaries like Graf Zeppelin. So overall, I do like the way that the German carriers are going right now. I do think the damage from the AP bombs and the AP rockets do need to be toned down just a little bit. Because, again, you're still just basically throwing citadels at these cruisers from, 2, 3, 4 kilometers away without them being able to do too much about it because of the way AA is. I'm not talking like cutting it in half. I mean, just trimming it down a little bit, kind of like they're doing with the AP bombs right now. And I do expect the AP bombs themselves to get nerfed because, again, they are applying a global nerf to all AP bombers. It just didn't show up in the patch notes whether or not the German CVs were getting this nerf as well. So overall, it's an interesting line. I look forward to the Richthofen coming out to see what that thing's like. It can currently 26-4 if all of its AP bombs connect, and like I said, I expect that to get nerfed. If that doesn't get nerfed, oh boy, it's going to be interesting. Alright guys, let me know what you think about the German CVs in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 15,000 subs. We're getting oh so close to 14,000 subscribers thanks to you guys. Again guys, thanks for all that you do in supporting the channel. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.